Hello friends. So I'm back here again for the module 6 of marketing basics, and we continue our understanding of consumer needs, because for every budding marketer as well as any young entrepreneur or business professional, it is extremely important that we understand the subject of consumer needs or customer needs. We have understood a fair bit of how to uncover consumer needs through various uh, techniques. However, today we will be discussing some creative techniques to uncover consumer needs. So let's move ahead. So what we have learned so far is the following. We started with that why is it that it is very important for uncovering consumer need? Because the role of a brand in a consumer's life is basically to solve a problem that improves the quality of consumer's life. There is no other role, and if that is what is the role of a brand, then it is very very important that we understand what is the problem in the consumer's life that we can solve, or an aspiration that we can satisfy, and that is what we qualify as need. Various techniques to uncover needs so far that we have learned is understanding the pestle factors, understanding the 5W and 1H framework, under which we learned triggers, barriers, lapsing, functional needs, emotional needs. And finally, we also tried and understood how to uncover the aspirations and anxieties of a consumer life. All of these is there in my past two modules, and you can go back and you can learn that in detail. And once we have done it, then we build our hypothesis basis classification of the needs, basis the competitor mapping, consumer perceptions, and basis this we build our hypothesis in the form of what we call as concepts, and then we check those hypotheses with consumers, and we keep iterating till we believe that consumers are finding our hypothesis relevant, and it is kind of they are liking it, and there is a possibility that if we translate that into a real product, the consumer will buy it. So this is what we have learned so far. However, many a times, or sometimes, it is possible in many product categories that we will hit a roadblock. Why do we hit a roadblock? Because many a times the categories are so mature that all sort of competitor brands have done everything that you could think of on the book. Now, in such cases, it becomes very, very difficult to find a need gap. So what do we do when we hit a roadblock like this is what we are going to learn today. In situations like this, there is only one solution, and that solution is uh, let our imaginations taking center stage. Because when nothing else we works, all the research, understanding all aspects of the consumer's life, but I am unable to figure out a need that I can satisfy better than competition, then I have to figure out a solution which is beyond all of this. And that is there for creativity, that is there for letting our imaginations fly. And once we do that, we will always find a solution even in the most saturated category. And that's why Steve Jobs sometimes said that a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show it to them. Because many a times what will happen is that we will do a lot of researches, and especially in very, very mature categories, we will not find any new great idea which can be translated into a product innovation. In such cases, we will have to let our imaginations take center stage, and that will always lead to innovation. Apple as an organization always believed in that. So let's look at some examples before we get into dive into that what are those some of those techniques. So let's look at these three examples: Blue Origin, SpaceX, Galactic, Virgin Galactic. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about these brands. And if some of you have not heard about these brands or these companies, let me tell you that all these three companies actually deal in space tourism. And you would know that space tourism now is slowly but surely picking up, and there are three large companies Blue Origin is a venture by the owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. SpaceX is a venture by the owner of Tesla, and uh, Virgin Galactic is a venture by Richard Branson, who owns the Virgin Group. So all these three big innovative businessmen, innovative people have invested to build something called space tourism. Now, sounds very for many of us, it will sound very unique and sound very weird. That I mean, why would somebody go to space for tourism? I mean, is there really a consumer need that we want to go to space for tourism? Do customers really badly want such services? Now, maybe the answer is no. However, if we consider this, that what if tourism should not be limited to planet Earth, then maybe we can start thinking about that what, you know, maybe outside the planet also there could be tourism. Right now, when we think it like this, we are coming up with newer ideas, and companies are coming up with newer ideas, because maybe it is not a very large scale idea today, but maybe 50 years from now it may be a large scale idea. There will be enough takers for this, but the investment behind that has to go today, because it requires technology, it requires iterativeness to get that technology right, and over a period of time this technology will mature and it will become perfect. But the root of it, the origin of it, has started with that somebody actually thought that why should tourism be limited to planet Earth? And also think about it that maybe, you know, with the growing population density across the globe, maybe there will not be enough places to go as a tourist, because everywhere you will find human beings and there is no nothing else really to kind of explore. Even in such a situation, the only place that you would be left to explore is beyond the planet Earth. So if we just open up our context, then we get newer ideas. And here is one such idea that we are already seeing. Similarly, at one point of time, watch was only about timekeeping. So therefore, we say that a watch is a watch is a watch. However, if we consider watch in a different context, so if we consider watch as a timekeeper, then of course it's the same old watch. But if you watch it, if you consider a watch as a style quotient, something that enhances your fashion, then I'm sure you will think about watch and its features in a very different manner. Something that Titan many years back did, and that's how they really evolved themselves from a stagnant watch company to a highly growing watch company. Recently, we are seeing that when you change the same context to digital or fitness, new brands have come up who have imagined watch in a very different manner. So today, watch is not just a timekeeper, but it also tells how many calories you're burning. Fitbit, right, and many other brands who have evolved watch, seen watch in a very different context, and see how it looks. And this is how you can change the context of a category in consumer's life, but this can never come from consumer. It can only come from the creator, but of course you can take it to the consumer to see that whether this idea is relevant or not, and then only you launch it. But this is again a great example of how an existing category of watch has evolved just by sheer imagination. And there are millions of examples. There are so many innovations happening every day, but some of it, you know, what if a car did not need gas, and that led to battery operated cars, which is why Tesla today is so successful in some parts of the world, because it is capturing the consumer imagination. They could never think of it, but now there is a company which has been able to think of it, and they have created a product which does not run on petrol or diesel. It runs on battery. What if your store could come to you? At some point of time, somebody, maybe it was Amazon, or maybe it was, you know, even before Amazon, some other companies tested or must have piloted, but the origin of e-commerce, the consumer could not think of it. But when the manufacturers, the business companies let their creative imagination take center stage, they came up with the idea that why should a retail store be brick and mortar? Why not it can come to you directly through the power of internet? So that's how e-commerce got originated, and look at how e-commerce is taking place, taking center stage in our life. uh, Google. What if you could search anything at the click of a button? Now that led to the imagination of making search, making knowledge democratized, and that led to the innovation and in the form of Google. And today, look how search or information is so easy, which at some point of time it was a valued resource. Only few could have access to it. It required money, but today you don't require money to search anything. You just require a computer or your mobile phone. Go to Google, search anything, you will certainly get some information. So that's how imaginations let companies come up with newer services, newer products, but all it required, or the origin of it, was little bit of imagination. And that is what is indeed important when we are stuck as marketeers, as manufacturers, as business people. We are stuck that my category, my product is no more growing. What do I do? Now, in such situations, you will have to let your imaginations take the center stage to build completely new ideas which you can take to consumers and test. And as I said, no consumer, no research will ever provide you such unique ideas. All it requires is a little bit of creative imagination. So let's now learn that what are some of these creative imagination techniques, right? And friends, I must tell you that this is again a very vast topic under, I would say, the subject of innovations. And in my subsequent modules in the coming months, I will be taking innovations as one full topic where we will delve deep into the subject of innovation, because innovation is what drives marketing, innovation is what drives businesses. Otherwise, businesses will be stagnant very soon. So, if businesses have to evolve, it will require innovation. But today we will learn in very brief some of these creative imagination techniques, so that we can give a closure to this entire topic of uncovering consumer needs. So we have learned something which are very theoretical and very practical, but very theoretical. But sometimes those theories you may not be able to practice because your competitors have done it all, and you might face a roadblock. In such situations, this is what we got to do, which is we got to let our creative imaginations fly. And this is what we mean when we say changing the context. So with that in our mind, let us learn a few techniques here. So technique number one that we are going to learn today is called as magician technique. Now, what is a magician technique? It's very simple. It is that you will have to imagine that you are a magician, and if you are a magician and you could change anything about your existing product, existing category, then what will you do? The moment you wear the hat of a magician and you believe that there are no constraints, because many a times I mean, think about it. uh, 10 15 years back, if anyone would have thought that, why can't my watch play the role of a health keeper? Maybe, people would, when they look at it from the frame of reference of existing watch, no, watch is the timekeeper. You will never be able to really think that, okay, what all new features I can add to it. But the moment you throw away that constraint, that baggage, that no, there is no constraint, I can do anything to my product that I want to, your mind will then start getting new ideas. And always believe that when you use this technique, never believe any idea is a stupid idea. In fact, let your imaginations fly high, and then you can qualify that, no, these are the ideas which seems more interesting, more feasible, and I will do it, right? So therefore this is technique number one, which we call as magician technique, where you throw out the hat of any constraints and you just wear the hat of a magician and then start thinking from the lens, okay, what change I can bring in my product. Technique number two is imagine your murderer. Sounds a little scary, but no need to be scared. It only, this means in the context of category and product, is that if you were to imagine that, okay, what is it that could kill my existing product category tomorrow? And when you start imagining, you will start getting ideas about your future competition, right? I mean, simply when internet was there and publishing industry was there, I'm sure if some of the big publishing houses would have started imagining that, okay, what could kill publishing tomorrow? Somebody would have definitely thought that what if, books are not required to be printed anymore? What if books are just available on the computer? I'm sure you, the it would not then have been Amazon which should have brought Kindle. Maybe it would have been some other player which should have brought something called as an ebook. But the fact is that existing players never change their context, and that's why they never are able to think beyond the obvious. So this is therefore the second technique, that you will have to force yourself कि okay, what could really kill my product category? I mean, simple example, let's say that deodorant. I mean, if deodorants players today start thinking about that, which kind of product, what can happen that tomorrow deodorant will not be required anymore? Maybe we'll get some, absolutely unique ideas. Okay, so this is technique number two. Technique number three is what we call as frame of reference. And frame of reference means nothing but it basically means in English context. And this is, to me, is possibly the most powerful way of imagining. And all it means, I have already given you an example, right? All it means is imagine a new context for your product, for your category. So I spoke about tourism, right? If the frame of reference of the context of tourism becomes universe rather than planet earth, suddenly uh, you the ideas that you get are very different. Similarly, we gave the example of a watch, that what if you look at watch from the context of health, you will start figuring out newer features. Think about shoes. I mean, what if you think about shoes from the lens of health? The features that you will start thinking about what shoes will have will be very different from the features if you think about shoes from the lens of fashion. So changing the lens, changing the context, changes the way you start thinking about your product, and that's how you start getting absolutely fresh ideas about your existing category. Technique number four is called as cross-category fertilization, and it simply means that you borrow some of the existing features of some of the categories which might be adjacent to your category onto your own category, onto your own product. And we have seen many examples where innovations have purely come from cross-category fertilizations. So example, the most interesting example is camera and mobile phone, right? At one point of time, camera and mobile phone were two different categories, but over a period of time, the features of camera, pixels, how many pixels it can have, how much zoom you can have, basically all the features that makes a camera perfect to take an excellent photograph is now available in your mobile phone. So the mobile phone is no more about calling. The mobile phone is also about taking pictures, and that is how we, all of us, actually use our mobile phones majority of the times, apart from doing calls and texting. So cross-category fertilization always brings certain new ideas, and even in an FMCG category, hair color shampoo, where you bring the benefits of hair color into shampoo, or vice versa. But basically it has got a new product called hair color shampoo. So this idea is also a very powerful idea. However, you just need to think a little bit, okay, what are the adjacent competition that I have, what are the adjacent categories that I have, and you will be able to then think about newer ideas simply by borrowing those features into your existing product category. Finally, you also have technique number 5, which is consumer trends. And what is consumer trends? Consumer trends is something that we had studied a few modules back, that it is about understanding the macro factors that might be influencing consumer behavior and consumer lives, right? So uh, for example, suddenly across the world in many countries we are seeing a trend that national pride is now become very important for consumers, which was not there uh, maybe 20 years back, where people are suddenly having highly nationalistic feeling, and this is happening because of many political changes that is happening across the world. Now, is it something that you as a manufacturer of a particular product can start leveraging, right, which is made in India? Now that suddenly can actually become a very important feature of your product, that my products are made by Indian artisans and they are fully made in India. By buying every product of mine, you are actually contributing to the growth of your own country, generating employment. Now, this is a very different way of thinking about proposition than what all we learned so far about triggers, barriers, lapses, etc. But when you start thinking like that, you start bringing new features into your product proposition. Sustainability. Now, sustainability, almost every player across any category is looking at sustainability, because we know that consumers really are aware about the fact that planet Earth is getting worse day by day when it comes to its environment, the weather is changing, and hence they believe very well now that it is up to them to change their habits and start contributing to protect their own planet, because they know that their future generations lives depend on what they do today. And hence people are not shying away from giving up plastic uh, in as much as possible. They are shifting to paper packaging. We are going into waste management. We are conserving water. Rainwater harvesting is happening across buildings. So many things are really happening, which is simply happening because we all believe that we need to pollute our environment lesser, and hence many brands are using sustainability as one of their propositions. So understanding consumer trends can always give you newer thoughts and newer ideas. Final technique we call as indirect competition. And indirect competition actually means that we need to expand the definition of our competition. So, for example, and when you do that, many a times you will be able to bring the features of your indirect competition into your existing product, and that's how you come up with new innovation and new propositions. A simple example, and this is, by the way, this is there in every category. In every category you can think about indirect competition. You can expand the scope of your competition, and you will then be able to think about new features. So for example, in every category there is a category which we will call at gold standard. So for example, when it comes to cosmetics, the gold standard is the salon, because uh, whether it is taking care of your hair or applying makeup, nobody can do it. We believe that no, the best uh, application of that happens when you take a service in a salon, because they are trained and they can do it better. But what if some of the features of those services start coming to your product thinking? And that's how brands like Tresemme, for example, innovated and brought in a proposition called salon like hair at home. So their entire proposition is built on that I am giving you a shampoo which makes your hair so soft that it almost feels like that it has been treated in a salon. And it is like this because my products are created by salon professionals. So like this, in many categories, many a times brands have tried to borrow the features of indirect competition into their product and built newer propositions. So friends, these are some of the techniques that I spoke about today, these 6 techniques which will help you open up your mind and think about newer ways of proposition building. And this you can utilize whenever you have been stuck or you are blocked completely, your mind is blocked, you're unable to think at all. These techniques can help you open your mind, and this is extremely important if you are working in a very mature category. In evolving categories, many a times these are not required because you will get a lot of things only through the more basic techniques like what we discussed: understanding the triggers, understanding the barriers, understanding the reasons for lapsing. Only those very initial understanding of those aspects can get you going. But in very mature, highly penetrated categories, you will have to keep thinking innovatively. And for keep thinking innovatively, you will have to open up your mind, and hence some of these techniques can help you. But don't worry, I will take a complete detailed module on innovations in which we'll delve really deep about how to innovate, and we will again discuss each one of these techniques in detail with a lot of examples then. So overall, let's summarize our learning so far under the topic of consumer needs. What we discussed, I think we discussed what is the role of a brand. We discussed the techniques to uncover needs. So far, we had discussed the macro factors, what we'll call as PESTLE. We had discussed the 5W and 1H framework. We discussed how to understand anxieties and aspirations of a consumer's life. But today, we also discussed the how to uncover some needs just purely through creative imagination. And as we had discussed already, that when you use these techniques help you to actually build hypotheses, and you take those hypotheses in the form of concepts to consumers or your customers and keep getting it checked to get a feedback from them that whether they find it relevant, they find it unique, and whether these hypotheses drives them to try out your product. And when you start getting positive response from your customer, from your consumer, that's when you translate that hypothesis into a real product, real service. So just understanding the needs, does it really help us making the purchase? Because remember, when we started our marketing basics module, in our module 1 we only discussed what is the role of a marketer, and I had said at that point of time that the role of a marketer is primarily to influence a positive disposition towards your target customer or your target consumer's mind towards your product, towards your service. So making a purchase is, or influencing your target consumer or target customer towards making a purchase of your product and your service, as a marketer and as a business per se, that is the role of a business, that is the role of a marketer's job in that business. So the question is that if you understand the needs well, will it lead to a purchase? And that the answer to that is no, because understanding needs is the starting point. But when it comes to any customer, any consumer, translating that to purchase, you have to pass through many other hurdles. And those are really not hurdles, but those are the steps that every layman, every consumer, we also take those steps before we ultimately take out our wallet, our credit card, our mobile wallet, and make that money payment. Okay, so it is not very simply that okay, I have a need and I'll go to the store and I'll purchase. No, the consumer mind goes through many other steps, and we have to understand those steps for us to be able to figure out this entire cycle of how a consumer, where there is a need in his mind, how does that finally translate to a choice for a particular brand, for a particular product, and how does that finally leads the consumer to make a purchase by spending money. Because if we don't do that, ultimately just understanding consumer needs is a theoretical exercise. So therefore, this brings us to the last leg of our 5W and 1H framework, which is what, where, when, how. And this is basically about how the consumer goes about making their purchase decisions, where do they purchase it from, when do they purchase the product, and what are the factors that plays in their mind while they are making those purchases. And this is what we call as the consumer's decision making process. So finally, we have to understand the consumer decision making process, what we also call as path to purchase. Okay, so once we understand the consumer's decision making process, then it completes our complete understanding of the consumer, because now we do not just know about what are the needs in the consumer's life, but we also know that how, what are the steps that the consumer takes to finally make the decision towards making a purchase. And once we have charted that decision making process, we will know what to do when to influence that consumer to nudge him a step forward towards making purchase of my product, my service. And this we call as understanding path to purchase. In some companies you will hear it as decision making tree, or in some places you will hear this as a consumer buying cycle. There are many names to it, but primarily it means the same thing, that you want to understand the steps that the consumer takes from the time a need originates in his or her mind to the final purchase being made. What are the various steps that the consumer uh, has follows? Understanding that, charting that, is what we need to learn so that we are able to really complete our understanding of consumer needs. And this is what we are going to learn in our next module, our module 7, where we will learn the concept of path to purchase, and we will understand what is path to purchase and how understanding this path to purchase, I will show you an example that once you know the need, how do you translate that to a purchase through a real life example, so that you are able to visualize that if you are a marketeer, if you are a business owner, then how should you look at the consumer's path to purchase, and what steps you should take in each one of those. As a business, as a marketing person, what steps do you need to take to influence the consumer in each one of the steps that the consumer takes. So with that, I come to the conclusion of today's module. I hope you find it satisfying, you find it meaningful, and I'm hoping that you are using my modules to improve your marketing skills and applying them in your day-to-day job. uh, I would request you that if you have any queries, you can reach me. I have shared here my LinkedIn profile. I have shared here my uh, email ID, and there is my mobile number. You can reach out to me if you have any further query. And I would love if you spread the word, and if you share my modules to your friends whom you think they also will be benefited with this knowledge. Please do share them my YouTube channel or my LinkedIn profile, so that they can go through the posts that I have been posting on LinkedIn, or the same videos which I have been uploading on my YouTube channel. They can also access to it. With that, thank you so much. Wish you all the best. Have a great day.